Another saint we celebrate this week is Saint Francis de Sales. Have we heard of Saint Francis de Sales before? Saint Francis de Sales. De Sales is spelled D-E space S-A-L-E-S, de Sales. So Saint Francis de Sales lived from 1567 to 1622, was a bishop in Geneva, known for his gentle approach to divisions in the church. Why? Because we know that he was living right after that time of the Protestant Reformation, when various people like Martin Luther had the idea that, you know what, something has gone wrong in this church and it's time for us to reform the church. So he had this more open and inclusive way of treating the reformers. Rather than looking at them as excommunicated heretics, he was a bit more pastoral in his approach. He was the oldest of 6 sons in a noble French family. He was baptized Francis Bonaventure. Have we heard of those 2 names before? They were 2 great Franciscan saints, right? Saint Francis and Saint Bonaventure. So Saint Francis de Sales was named after those 2 great Franciscan saints. He had a very good education because his family was preparing him to be a nobleman. But then what happened? He told his family that he wanted to be a what? A priest. Which, since he was the oldest of 6 sons, he was going to inherit everything from his father. And instead, he renounced his birthright and became a priest. He would later become the Bishop of Geneva in Switzerland. He was known for his preaching. He founded an order for men and an order for women. Both of them died out. But why do we know St. Francis of de Sales today? Mostly for 2 reasons. One, because he was a writer, which is why today he's the patron saint of journalists and writers, because he wrote books for lay people to be able to grow in their spirituality. And so one of those books was called An Introduction to the Devout Life. How it is that anyone, even if you're not a priest, if you're a lay person, anyone can grow in his or her relationship with God. An Introduction to the Devout Life. So he's known as the patron saint of writers and journalists. He's known as the patron saint of the deaf. Why is he known as the patron saint of the deaf? There's a story that's told of him of how it was that he met a deaf man. And he told this deaf man about God by using signs. And so he used signs to express himself and to teach this deaf man about God, which is why today he's the patron saint of the deaf. He died of a stroke at the age of 55. But we said there's one more reason for which St. Francis de Sales is famous. Have we heard of a guy named St. John Bosco? St. John Bosco? St. John Bosco founded an order called the Salesians. Where did that word Salesians come from? St. Francis de Sales. Interesting that he founded this order called the Society of St. Francis de Sales. Today we know them as the Salesians. So if you know of any Salesian priests or brothers or sisters, we know them as the Daughters of Mary, Help of Christian. We had them over at Christ-Rey. They are part of the Salesian heritage that comes from St. Francis de Sales.